My mom passed away from cancer when I was 12 years old. She was the gentlest woman I have ever known. Her name was Grace, and she worked as a nurse at our local hospital in a small town in Ohio. 2 years after she was gone, my dad remarried a woman named Donatella. At first, she seemed sweet and caring. I truly believed I would have a complete family again, but I did not know what that smile was hiding. What I am about to tell you will show you that sometimes the people who seem closest to you are the ones who push you into the deepest pit. Before I begin, let me know where you are watching from by leaving a comment below. And if you believe in karma, hit that like button and subscribe to follow this journey with me. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the days when life still felt warm and safe. My mother Grace was everything to me. Every Friday night, she would make her famous mac and cheese, the kind with 3 different cheeses and a crispy breadcrumb topping. After dinner, she would sit on the edge of my bed and read me stories until my eyes grew heavy. Her voice was soft, like a lullaby, and her hands always smelled like lavender lotion. When I was 11 years old, the doctors found something wrong in her lungs. Stage 4 cancer, they said. I did not fully understand what that meant at the time, but I knew from the way my dad's face went pale that it was bad. For 1 whole year, I watched my mother fight. She lost her hair. She lost weight. But she never lost her smile when she looked at me. She would hold my hand and tell me that everything would be okay, that I needed to be strong for her and for Dad. She passed away on a cold winter night in December. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. The room was silent except for the sound of the heart monitor going flat. My dad collapsed onto his knees beside her bed and sobbed like I had never seen a grown man cry before. That night, something inside both of us broke. After Mom was gone, Dad changed completely. He stopped talking much. He started drinking whiskey alone in the garage after work. He still went to his job at the factory, still put food on the table, but the light in his eyes had gone out. I tried to be strong like Mom asked me to, but I was just a kid, carrying a grief too heavy for my shoulders. 2 years passed like that, in a fog of silence and sadness. Then one day, Dad came home with a different look on his face. He told me he had met someone at the bar downtown. Her name was Donatella. She was around 40 years old, with dark brown hair that she always styled perfectly. She wore red lipstick and had a wide smile that showed all her teeth. But even from the first time I met her, I noticed something about her eyes. They were cold, like 2 pieces of polished stone. At first, Donatella seemed to make an effort with me. She asked about my school, my grades, my friends. She bought me new clothes and cooked dinner for us. Dad started smiling again. He put down the whiskey bottle. He laughed at her jokes and held her hand at the dinner table. I was 14 years old, and my heart was full of hope. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could be a real family again. They got married in a small ceremony in our backyard during the spring. The apple tree was blooming with white flowers, and the air smelled sweet. I was the only groomsman. I stood beside my dad in my best button-down shirt and watched him say his vows to this woman I barely knew. I wanted to believe in new beginnings. I wanted to believe that happiness was possible again. But 6 months after the wedding, things started to shift in ways that I did not notice at first. Donatella began to complain about small things. She said my room was too big for just one kid. She suggested that I move down to the basement so she could turn my room into a yoga studio. Dad agreed without even asking me. He just wanted to keep his new wife happy. So I packed up my things and moved down to the basement. It was damp and dark down there with no windows and only one yellow light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The walls were concrete, and in the winter I could see my breath when I woke up in the mornings, But I did not complain. I told myself it was a small sacrifice for the sake of our family. Then Donatella started forgetting to make dinner for me. She would cook for herself and Dad, and when I came upstairs, she would say that she thought I had already eaten, or she would shrug and tell me that I was old enough to make my own food. So I learned to make sandwiches and heat up canned soup. I ate alone in the basement most nights, listening to the muffled sound of their laughter upstairs. I tried so hard to make her like me. I washed the dishes without being asked. I vacuumed the living room. I mowed the lawn every Saturday. But nothing I did was ever good enough. She would inspect my work with her arms crossed and point out every little flaw. The floor still has dust in the corner. The grass is not cut evenly. You missed a spot on that plate. She never once said thank you. Dad worked the night shift at the factory, so he was never home during the day to see how she treated me. And I did not tell him because I did not want to cause problems. I did not want to be the reason his second marriage fell apart. I had already lost my mom. I could not bear to lose anything else. When I was 16 years old, Donatella announced that she was pregnant. Dad was overjoyed. He picked her up and spun her around in the kitchen, laughing like a young man in love. I was happy too at first. The idea of having a little brother or sister seemed exciting. I thought maybe a baby would bring us all closer together. But instead, the pregnancy made everything worse. Donatella became bolder in her cruelty. She started calling me the stepchild in front of her relatives during her baby shower. She told everyone that this baby was their real child, their first true family member. When I walked into the room, her sister looked at me with pity and whispered something to Donatella that made them both laugh. I went to my dad that night and told him how she made me feel. He put his hand on my shoulder and sighed. He told me that Donatella was just hormonal because of the pregnancy, that she did not mean the things she said, that I needed to be patient and understanding. So I swallowed my hurt and said nothing more. The baby came in the fall. They named him Bradley. He was a beautiful baby with big blue eyes and a tuft of blonde hair. I loved him from the first moment I saw him. When Donatella was tired, I would sneak into the nursery and rock him gently in my arms. I would sing him the same lullabies my mom used to sing to me. For a few precious moments, holding that little baby, I felt like I belonged to something again. But Donatella caught me one day holding Bradley. She snatched him out of my arms so fast that he started crying. She told me that my hands were dirty, that I was not allowed to touch her son, that I might hurt him. Her son. Not our brother. Her son. The message was clear. I was not part of this family. When I turned 17, I got a part-time job at a pizza shop after school. I worked hard, taking extra shifts whenever I could. I made about $300 a month, which felt like a fortune to a teenager. I was saving up for college, for my future, for the day I could finally leave that house. Then Donatella found out about my job. She sat me down at the kitchen table one evening and told me that since I was earning money, I needed to pay rent. $200 a month, she said. She told me that I was not her real child, so I needed to pay my way like a tenant. I was stunned. I wanted to argue, but I saw the look in her eyes. It was the look of someone who had already won. So every month, I handed over $200 of my hard-earned money. I watched Donatella use that money to buy herself new handbags and shoes. She would post pictures on social media showing off her purchases. Meanwhile, I was still wearing the same clothes from 9th grade. My shoes had holes in them. I taped the soles together with duct tape so they would last a little longer. I never told my dad about the money. Donatella controlled all the household finances, and he trusted her completely. I was afraid that if I said something, she would twist it around and make me look like the bad guy. So I kept my mouth shut and counted the days until I could escape. But Donatella was not satisfied with just taking my money. She wanted to isolate me completely. She told me I was not allowed to bring friends to the house. She said the house was not a place for my friends to hang out, that I would make a mess and disturb Bradley. So I stopped inviting anyone over. My friends from school started drifting away because I could never hang out with them. Then she started spreading rumors about me to the neighbors. She told them I was lazy and disrespectful, that she was sacrificing so much to take care of her husband's troubled child. I would walk down the street and see Mrs. Patterson from next door give me a disapproving look. Mr. Garcia across the road stopped waving at me. The whole neighborhood believed her lies. I became a ghost in my own life. I went to school, went to work, and came home to hide in the basement. My grades dropped because I could not focus. My teachers noticed something was wrong, but I was too ashamed to tell them the truth. Every night, I would lie on my thin mattress and stare at a photograph of my mom that I kept hidden under my pillow. I would whisper to her in the darkness, "Mom, what did I do wrong? Why does no one want me?" The day I turned 18 years old was supposed to be a milestone, a celebration of becoming an adult. It was November, and the air outside was bitter cold. I worked a double shift at the pizza shop because we were short-staffed, and I did not get home until almost 9 in the evening. My fingers were numb from the cold as I walked up the driveway. I was hoping maybe my dad had left me a birthday card, or that there would be a slice of cake waiting on the counter. But when I opened the front door, I found Donatella standing in the middle of the living room. She was wearing her expensive cashmere sweater, and her arms were crossed over her chest. Behind her, I could see 3 suitcases, my suitcases, packed and lined up by the door. I froze in the doorway, my heart pounding. "What is going on?" I asked. My voice came out barely above a whisper. Donatella smiled, but it was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting a long time for this moment. She told me that I was 18 now, a legal adult. She said that this was not my home anymore and that I needed to leave. Tonight, I felt like the ground had dropped out from under my feet. I asked her if my dad knew about this. She laughed and pulled a piece of paper from her pocket. She unfolded it and held it up for me to see. It was a document that said I was voluntarily moving out of the house upon reaching adulthood. At the bottom was my father's signature. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone. I called my dad, but it went straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I called a third time, and Donatella grabbed the phone out of my hand. She told me to stop making a scene, that my dad was on a business trip and had already agreed to this. She said I was not family, that I had no right to be in her house. I heard small footsteps on the stairs. I looked up and saw Bradley standing at the top, clutching his stuffed bear. He was 3 years old, and his eyes were wide with confusion. He called out to me. He asked where I was going. He started to cry. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I wanted to run up those stairs and hold him to tell him I would never leave him. But Donatella stepped between us. She told me to get out before I upset her son any further. Her son, not my brother. Her son. I grabbed my suitcases and walked out into the freezing night. The temperature was around 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was only wearing a thin jacket. I dragged those 3 suitcases down the driveway, not knowing where I was going to go. I had no money. Donatella had taken everything from my savings account, claiming it was for back rent that I owed. I walked to the park 3 blocks away and sat down on a cold metal bench. The tears came then silent and burning hot against my frozen cheeks. I tried calling a few friends from school, but nobody answered. It was late on a weeknight and most people were already asleep. Then I remembered my grandfather. My mom's grandfather, Harold. He was 80 years old and lived about 20 miles outside of town in a small farmhouse. I had not spoken to him since my mom's funeral because Donatella had discouraged me from keeping in touch with my mom's side of the family. She said they were bad influences, that they would fill my head with negativity about her. I scrolled through my old contacts with frozen fingers until I found his number. I did not even know if it would still work. I pressed call and held my breath. After 4 rings, a familiar voice answered. It was scratchy and old, but it was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. He asked who was calling. I told him it was me, his great-grandson. There was a pause, and then his voice cracked with emotion. He asked where I was, if I was okay. I told him everything in a rush of broken sentences. I told him I was at the park, that I had nowhere to go, that Donatella had thrown me out. He did not hesitate for a single second. He told me to stay right where I was, that he was getting in his truck and coming to get me. He told me not to worry, that everything was going to be all right. 45 minutes later, his old pickup truck pulled into the parking lot. Grandpa Harold stepped out, his white hair wild from the wind and his flannel jacket buttoned crooked. He wrapped his arms around me and held me tight while I sobbed into his shoulder. He smelled like wood smoke and coffee, and in that moment, I felt safer than I had felt in years. At his farmhouse, I sat at his kitchen table wrapped in a thick wool blanket while he made me hot cocoa. I told him everything: the basement room, the rent money, the cruelty, the isolation. He listened without interrupting, his weathered face growing darker with anger. When I finished, he picked up his phone and called my dad. This time, someone answered. I could hear my dad's voice through the speaker, confused and groggy. He had been asleep at his hotel. Grandpa Harold told him what had happened, and there was a long silence. Then my dad started talking. He said he never signed any paper. He said Donatella had never told him about any plan to kick me out. He sounded shocked and upset. He promised he would come home right away and fix everything. For a moment, I felt hope flicker in my chest. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. Maybe my dad would finally see Donatella for who she really was. Maybe I could go home. But 2 days later, my dad called back. His voice was different this time. Quiet. Defeated. He told me that Donatella had threatened to divorce him and take Bradley away to another state where he would never see his son again. He said she had forged his signature on that document while he was drunk one night. He said he was sorry, so sorry, but he could not risk losing another child. He chose her. He chose Bradley. He abandoned me. I hung up the phone and stared at the wall for a long time. I did not cry. I had no tears left to give. Something inside me went cold and hard, like a door slamming shut. Living with Grandpa Harold saved my life in more ways than one. His farmhouse was old and drafty, with creaky floorboards and a wood stove that needed constant feeding. But it was warm with love in a way that my father's house had never been. Grandpa Harold gave me the spare bedroom upstairs, the one that used to belong to my grandmother before she passed. He told me I could stay as long as I needed. I helped him with chores around the farm. We fed the chickens together in the early mornings. We repaired the fence along the back pasture. We sat on the porch in the evenings and watched the sun set over the fields. He told me stories about my mom when she was young, how she used to chase fireflies in those same fields, how she always dreamed of becoming a nurse so she could help people. Grandpa Harold encouraged me to keep going to school. He said my mom would have wanted me to get an education to build a life for myself. So I did. I worked 2 jobs to pay my own way. In the mornings before school, I delivered newspapers to houses all over the county. After school, I worked at the warehouse of a local grocery store, stacking boxes and unloading trucks. I came home exhausted every night, but I was determined. I enrolled in community college and studied accounting. It was not glamorous, but it was practical, and I was good with numbers. I kept my head down and worked harder than anyone else in my classes. By the end of my first year, I had the highest GPA in my program. I earned a scholarship to transfer to the state university. 4 years later, I graduated with honors. I had job offers from several big companies, and I accepted a position at one of the top accounting firms in the country. The starting salary was more money than I had ever dreamed of making. I bought myself a small apartment in the city, a reliable used car, and a proper winter coat that actually kept me warm. I was 25 years old. I had built a life from nothing. And every single day, I looked at the framed photo of my mom on my desk and thanked her for giving me the strength to keep going. Then one day, about 5 years after Donatella had thrown me out, I got a phone call from an old neighbor back in my hometown. Mrs. Patterson, the same woman who used to give me dirty looks because of Donatella's lies, had tracked down my number. She wanted to tell me what had happened. Donatella had been caught having an affair. Her fitness trainer of all people, a 28-year-old guy named Jake, who worked at the gym downtown. Someone had seen them together at a motel outside of town and told my dad. My father filed for divorce immediately. But the story did not end there. During the divorce proceedings, Grandpa Harold came forward with evidence. He had kept records of everything I had told him: the emotional abuse, the stolen money, the forged signature. He testified in court about how Donatella had treated me, and he brought witnesses who had seen her behavior over the years. The judge was not kind to Donatella. She lost custody of Bradley because the court determined she had a pattern of psychological abuse toward children in her care. My father got full custody. The house was sold, and the assets were split, leaving Donatella with far less than she had expected. She had to move back in with her mother in another state, starting over with nothing. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, my phone rang. It was my father. I had not spoken to him in 5 years. I almost did not answer, but I did. His voice was broken, thick with tears. He told me he was sorry. He said he had been a coward, that he had failed me in the worst possible way. He said he understood if I never wanted to speak to him again, but he needed me to know that he regretted his choice every single day. I was silent for a long time. 5 years of pain and loneliness welled up inside me. Part of me wanted to scream at him to make him feel even a fraction of what I had felt sitting on that frozen park bench on my 18th birthday. But then I remembered what my mom used to tell me. She said that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. She told me to live with love in my heart, not hatred. So I took a deep breath and told my dad that I needed time. I told him I could not promise forgiveness, but I would try. It was the most honest thing I could offer. A month later, I drove back to Ohio to see Bradley. He was 8 years old now, tall for his age, with the same blonde hair he had as a baby. When he saw me, he ran across the yard and threw his arms around my waist. He told me he had missed me so much, that he had never forgotten me, that he was sorry for what his mom had done. I knelt down and held him close. I told him that none of it was his fault, that I had always loved him, that I always would. I promised to be the big brother he deserved, no matter what had happened in the past. Today, my life looks nothing like I imagined it would when I was a scared teenager hiding in a basement. I have a successful career, a comfortable home, and people who genuinely care about me. Grandpa Harold lives with me now in my new apartment. At 85 years old, he still wakes up early and makes coffee before I leave for work. We sit together at the kitchen table every morning, just like we used to at the farmhouse. My relationship with my father is slowly healing. We talk on the phone once a week now. It is awkward sometimes, and there are silences where neither of us knows what to say. But we are trying. That is more than I ever thought possible. Bradley spends summers with me in the city, I take him to baseball games and museums. I help him with his homework over video calls during the school year. He calls me his favorite person in the whole world, and every time he says it, my heart feels a little more whole. I keep a photograph of my mom on my nightstand. Every night before I go to sleep, I tell her about my day. I thank her for teaching me how to be strong, how to be kind, how to keep going even when the world feels impossibly dark. Donatella once told me I was not family. She was right about one thing. I was never her family. But I am the son of Grace, the great-grandson of Harold, the big brother of Bradley. I know now that family is not about sharing a roof or a last name. Family is about the people who stand beside you when everything falls apart. Karma did not need me to seek revenge. Karma only needed me to keep walking forward, to build a good life, to become someone my mom would be proud of. The people who hurt me faced consequences of their own making. I did not have to lift a finger. If you are going through something similar right now, if someone is making you feel like you do not belong, like you are not worthy of love, I want you to know this. The darkness does not last forever. The cold night eventually gives way to morning, and karma, she is always watching. She is patient, and she never forgets. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had someone in your life who made you feel like you did not matter, and then watched karma catch up to them? I would love to hear your story in the comments below. If this video touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Subscribe to this channel so we can keep sharing stories together. Thank you for being here with me. I wish you strength, I wish you healing, and I wish you a family that truly loves you, whoever they may be.